we know nothing about subcontractors and subcontractors. It's none of our business. Okay. Typically, there are two kinds of contractors that work within TSM. They are the contractors where they give you a fixed price, and you give them the go-ahead, and they go and do the work. And then there are contractors that work and bill you by the hour.
Okay. With the fixed price contractor, I don't actually care who they are. They just are a supplier. You'll create a supplier invoice to that particular contractor for $5,000 worth of labour, and you don't care if they spend 10 minutes or 3 weeks doing it. At the end of the day, you expect an invoice from them like any other supplier for you buying hardware or whatever for $5,000. Okay? And that can be linked to the job, and that can go as a, as a line item with a cost and no sell, or whatever you want as a cost on that job. Okay? So that's that scenario. The other scenario is when they're actually going to bill you by the hour. So when they bill you by the hour, typically what you want to know is you want to know, did they spend those hours there? So what those subcontractors will do is they'll actually give you timesheets. So you will then go and enter those subcontractors as employees and in the system, and then you will add time for those contractors as if they were your employees, because you're going to bill the customer by the hour that the subcontractor worked, because they're just substituting your staff for subcontractors. The customer's still being billed by the hour. So what's going to happen? The subcontractor is going to come along, and he's going to give you an invoice for 10 hours. You need to reconcile that 10 hours of invoice against the 10 hours that they actually log time. No point them logging 5 hours of time and sending you an invoice for 10 hours. It doesn't work that way. So what do we do in that scenario? Well, this is what we do. First thing we do is I'm going to show you where we set up the employee as a contractor. And in employee maintenance, and of course we are sitting here in simple mode. Why would we have simple mode? It makes things so much more complicated for me. So this is an administrative function, so it's not in the simple view. What we have over here is supplier ID for contractor payments. So what you will do is you'll create a link here to a supplier records, this is the customer ID of the supplier, to this employee, so that we know, oh, this is a contractor, and that when we do the billing for this contractor, we can link it up to a supplier invoice, purchase order, whatever, through this supplier ID. So that's the link between the employee and the supplier. You will then go ahead and create timesheets like any other employee on this job. What you will then do is you then want to create you don't want them to tell you what they're going to charge you. You want to tell them what they're going to pay you, right? So what you want to do is create a purchase order to that supplier for the number of hours that they have logged on jobs, okay? So that when their invoice comes in, it will marry up, or should marry up, with what you're expecting them to charge you. So what we do is we go into purchase orders. It's been a while since I've done this, but there's an option here called supplier time. So if we go into, oh, okay, sorry, I need to set up a default product ID for supplier time. Supplier time. You must set up default product ID for supply timesheets in setup purchase orders. Okay, set up purchase orders. Set up purchase orders, and here we have somewhere here product ID for supplier time. Okay, so we're going to put in here it's sup time, whatever we want to call it. It doesn't really matter. Okay, it's called sup time. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on supplier time, and I'm going to say pick a supplier that I want to raise the supply time entries for. Pick an employee. Now I can leave that blank. It can be all suppliers. It can be all employees. Doesn't really matter. I can just do one, whatever. Choose a date range and process. Now what the process is going to do is it's going to look at all the time entries in that date range that are not linked to an audit and are linked to an employee that is a contractor. And it will then go and create purchase orders with line items for the sum of those timesheets on the product ID subtime that I just got in and set up automatically. And then, so it will say, you know, so many hours job whatever, so many hours job whatever, so many hours job whatever on this purchase order. And then that should then marry up with the supplier invoice. So you can then send that as a PO or whatever you do to the supplier, to the contractor, or just wait for them to send the invoice in, and it should then marry up. Okay? So that's what we have built into TSM already. Whether that's relevant for your client's requirement or not, I don't know, but that's how we can marry up those timesheets.